I'm going to start off by saying that I've never been a big horror guy. Actually, to the point where I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't see it when it came out in theaters. Yep, I watched it on HBO Max like a loser.
Boo this man! No!
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today I'm going to be making an educated guess about Best Picture nominees for next March's Oscars. Now, for those of you who have followed along for a long time, you know that we rank each of the Best Picture nominees for the year, and this year, instead of trying to get 10 episodes out in a short window, I'm going to attempt to get as many as I can in advance. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, here's the agenda. I start out by going over the movie overview, which is as described, an overview of the movie. Then I do the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the movie in 10 categories on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. Then we'll finish up with some facts and tidbits that I found out about the film that I call the potent notables. And today I'll be doing the second of my expected 2025 nominees, Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan and written and directed by Ryan Coogler. Now, we won't know if I'm right for a while here, but we'll still find out how Sinners ranks against the all-timers I've ranked already. I'm going to start off by saying that I've never been a big horror guy. Actually, to the point where I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't see it when it came out in theaters. Yep, I watched it on HBO Max like a loser.
Boo this man! No!
Now, I don't know what to say. I love the cinema, but with a bunch of little kids, I don't get to go as much as I'd like. And when I do get to go, I'm almost never going to choose horror.
Because he's scared.
I also know and knew at the time that I was missing out. What exactly did I miss out on? Well, a new vampire movie. That sort of makes it sound really simplistic, but you know what? That was kind of the idea. Coogler made a really straightforward film here that definitely had subtlety and complexity within it, but at the base was just meant to be an entertaining movie. Kind of hard not to be entertaining when you choose to double up with Michael B. Jordan, though, as your lead. I mean, the man is crazy charismatic. I can't help but think if he had come around in the 90s or the aughts, he would have been a movie star for sure. Now, I know what you're thinking here, but he is a movie star. But I don't mean an actor who stars in movies, because that's all we have anymore. I mean an actor who would headline a movie and it would be a hit simply because he was in it. That people would go out to see the movie because, hey, Michael B. Jordan is in it. I bet it's good. We really don't have that anymore. Even the actors who used to be that most recently, like Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise and Will Smith, don't have it anymore either. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but it's the reality. Anyway, that's a huge digression. We've got a movie about twin brothers and their seeming musical prodigy cousin who loves to play the blues. Now, I love blues music, and I loved the scene where Slim, a blues piano and harmonica player, tells Sam, the prodigy cousin, blues wasn't forced on us like that religion. Nah, we brought this from home. It's magic what we do. It's sacred. I mean, it's cool, you know? I mean, the blues is just an awesome genre of music, and
you should just come right out and say it.
Basically, I'm just trying to figure out a way to be like, I know I'm white, and I know that the blues aren't meant for necessarily me, but I like them anyway. Anyway, I also couldn't help but notice that there were a few times when it was pointed out that the Christian religion was forced on people, and not just the slaves, but also the Irish. Just a fascinating thing to mention when you're battling what are essentially considered demon-like beasts. This movie definitely felt allegorical to the constant encroachment on and stealing of minority cultures. But it wasn't all allegory. It was also just an entertaining movie with a fascinating world that was being unfolded for its audience. We follow the Smokestack twins as they buy an old lumber mill in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 1932. They purchase it off of a white guy who claims the Klan is gone, which felt more like a threat than anything else. They purchase this mill because they want to open a juke joint. We get basically a day in their life as they get the supplies and resources to get the juke joint open for that night for a grand opening. They decide that they're going to have their cousin Samuel, who is an amazing guitar / blues player and singer, play at the opening, and therefore they have him with them as they do their odds and ends to open the club. We find out about the twin brothers' unique past and what their motivations would be, with Stack seemingly more sentimental and Smoke seemingly more business-minded, and young Sam is just along for the ride. Now, when they get it open and everyone shows up, it feels like the night of their lives, especially for Sam, but some crazy shit is gonna go down. Of course, when you're watching this, unless you somehow missed any trailers for it at all, you know some horror movie stuff is going to happen, so I was sitting there waiting for the shoe shoe to drop. There were definitely a few jump scares and some moments that make you go, damn, but I wouldn't say it was especially scared, which is nice for me because I don't particularly want to be scared. What we end up with is a very From Dusk Till Dawn-esque battle royale, humans versus vampires. We already know that at least one of the humans is going to get away because of the beginning of the movie, but we don't know how, and we don't know if there are going to be any others. What I can say without spoiling anything is that it's a very satisfying ending, but I feel like it's satisfying in a way that you may not have been expecting. But will the rank end up being what you may not have been expecting? Let's find out.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, film coherence, cinematography, score/soundtrack/sound, script structure and dialogue, character relatability, production value, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story, which I gave an 8.25. I actually think I like the world building even more than the story. It felt like a very full and complex world. They gave us hints like working for Capone and stuff like that, but they didn't rely on that to tell the story. It was just a lot of fun. That being said, it was still really simple, which isn't a bad thing, but it also means it doesn't blow you away. So let's go to acting, which I gave an 8.75. I think Michael B. Jordan is really good in this. What I really liked was that he didn't make the twins absurdly different. They're just different in subtle ways, which is a testament to his acting ability, that he had them sound the same because they're both him, look the same because they're both him, and have similar motivations, but also be different enough that you never questioned which one was which. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That alone gives it a high score. Everyone else was good to great. Miles Catton was awesome, as was Delroy Lindo. There were definitely some moments of overacting from some of the supporting players, but it was still really, really good. So let's go to originality, which I gave a 6.5. This feels like a dick score, but you know, it felt like a lot of other movies. That isn't to say that it wasn't unique, but I could feel all the influences. My head kept comparing it to From Dusk Till Dawn. Favorably, I'd like to add, but comparison nonetheless. I mean, it's a vampire movie, you know? There's been lots of those. So the next category is film coherence, which I gave a 7.5. Okay, so I'm going to try to discuss my gripe with the coherence without giving away any spoilers. So here goes. I don't really understand what was happening with the vampires. So the main one is Remick, who turns a bunch of them. It seems like they had some kind of hive mind situation. Like, as soon as they turn, they don't give a shit about what relationship they had with anyone who hasn't been turned. Now, this can be explained with the hive mind thing, but then we'd find out later that not all of them have the hive mind thing. Like, it's intimated that a human tells one of the hive-minded vampires to promise not to do something, and then the vampire doesn't, and I just don't understand how that would have happened if, like, they all have the same mind. Also, I still don't understand why Remick was so obsessed with one of the characters in particular. I understand the premise presented for that, but it just never really gave a strong motivation there. So let's go to cinematography, which I give a 9.75. Cinematography was beautifully done. A lot of great scenes that made you just sort of stare at the screen and marvel. So let's go to score/soundtrack/sound. I gave that a 10. This is almost an unfair category with this movie. I don't know how you don't give it a 10. I kind of wish I could give it an 11. The music is amazing. So next, go to script structure and dialogue, which I gave a 9.25. This all felt very true. I thought the dialogue really worked for the time and place that it was taking place. Though, what would I know, I guess? As far as structure, though, I think I would have liked to see more development of Remick. Let's go to character relatability, which I gave an 8.5. I think everyone is pretty relatable. I actually find that Remick is the least relatable. Now, Remick is a vampire and therefore inherently maybe, you know, unrelatable, but still. I just never understood his obsession with one particular character. Other than that, I felt like everyone's motivations really made a lot of sense, except for when they turned, but that can be explained with the hive mind thing. So let's go to production value, which I gave a 9.5. It was awesome. At no point did I not think I was watching 1930s Mississippi, but beyond that, it just felt like they chose everything perfectly. Every location felt real. The only one that felt a little off, and I mean just the tiniest bit, was the town set. And you know, that's just because it felt sort of generic Hollywood town set, you know, 1930s town. But it still worked. So let's go to my rank, the final category, which I gave an 8. I really liked this movie. I will say though, I don't know that I would think of this as a best picture contender. And I don't want to say it lacks depth, because it does, but I don't know that it has as much depth as others that get nominated tend to have. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a great achievement though. It was still really good. Those are the rankings. So altogether, that puts Sinners at an 86, which makes it supreme cinema. An 86 places it just below The Substance and Shakespeare in Love, which were tied at 86.25, and just above Maestro. It also means that it sits just below One Battle After Another in the 2025 movies so far, with One Battle After Another getting an 88.5. If you're ranking along with me, drop your score for this one in the comments. I'd be curious to see.
contenders.
So as always, we start the Potent Notables with the box office info. Sinners made $278.6 million domestically and $88.1 million internationally for a worldwide total of $366.7 million. And this was against a budget of $90 million. So it was a pretty big hit. Actually, it will probably be even higher than that by the end of the year as they re-released it on IMAX this weekend. Now, the director, Ryan Coogler, says he had the American heavy metal band Metallica on his mind when he was laying out the story's rhythms and beats. He said, "I wanted the movie to have the simplicity and simultaneously the profound nature of a Delta blues song, but I wanted it to have the contrast, variation, and the inevitability of a great Metallica song like One." So One is the signature song from the band's 1988 album And Justice for All. He continues by saying, "It starts off with an almost like easy listening solo, and then it just goes batshit insane in a way that you could never have seen coming. And at the same time, it felt like it was going there all along." The movie is basically that. Apparently, Lars Ulrich, the drummer from Metallica, is credited as one of the drummers in this movie's scoring orchestra. Now, he also said that two of his biggest influences for the film were From Dusk Till Dawn and The Faculty. I found that interesting because the whole time I was watching it, I kept thinking of From Dusk Till Dawn. But according to Coogler, the biggest influences are not in cinema. The novel Salem's Lot is a massive influence on the film. Then there's a real deep cut influence. My favorite thing ever made is The Twilight Zone, and my favorite episode is called The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank. Probably Salem's Lot and The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank are probably the biggest influences. So that episode of The Twilight Zone, The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank, centers on Jeff Myrtlebank, as you might suspect. So he's a young man living in a small town in the southernmost section of the Midwest who mysteriously returns to life at his own funeral, much to the shock of his loved ones and pastor. Despite their reasonable trepidation, the townspeople declare it a miracle. That is, until rumors begin to swirl regarding minor yet noticeable shifts in Jeff's behavior following his unexpected resurrection. So that's the episode that gave him, the biggest influence, I suppose. But what I think is really funny is that what actually happened is that Coogler gave tons of interviews where he cited different big influences on the film. And I've just sort of cherry-picked a few. Others include his late Uncle James and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I mean, how do you leave that one out, right? Now, the film also shows a Chinese-American family living in Mississippi and running a grocery store in 1932. Seeing them while hearing them have a southern twang while they speak almost felt incongruous, but there's actually a long history of Chinese communities in the Mississippi Delta. So Dolly Lee, who's credited in this movie as like a special contributor, also produced a 2017 documentary segment for Untold America about this exact topic. So after slavery ended, rich white plantation owners were looking for cheap labor and the Chinese fit the bill. But they ended up not wanting to do that work for obvious reasons, and they opened grocery stores. So what's interesting is that they would build two stores, one to serve the black community and one to serve the white. And these stores were so ubiquitous in the Mississippi Delta that, and I'm quoting the documentary here, more than 70% of the population got their groceries and everyday goods from a tiny Chinese community. So I just thought that was really interesting. And Coogler decided to include this in the movie because about 10 years ago, his father-in-law, who considered himself African-American, did a DNA test, and it turned out that he had an unexpectedly large percentage of Han Chinese DNA. And this is Coogler talking. He said, he opened that packet up and said, like, what the? And where is he from? He was born in Chicago. Where were his parents? From Mississippi. So we start digging into it. And we find out that, my wife's black dad comes from these people. They were there. Now I'm going to end the Potent Notables with Ryan Coogler's letter to the people who went to see this movie. This is how it goes. Eternal gratitude. My heart is bursting with it. I want to thank each and every one of you who bought a ticket to see Sinners, who decided to drive to see the film in different formats, who bought popcorn and a drink, booked a sitter and carpool, and stood in the lobby afterward and talked and made a friend, who changed their work schedules, who saw the film in groups. I had the gift of the opportunity of making a film inspired by my family and my ancestry, but it was also a film that we wanted to make for audiences in theaters. We always had our minds on you, the audience, and felt the deep responsibility to entertain you and move you in the way only cinema can. I believe in cinema. I believe in the theatrical experience. I believe it is a necessary pillar of society. It's why me and so many of my colleagues have dedicated our lives to the craft. We don't get to do what we do if you don't show up. The global theatrical audience has showed me to dream, find a career, and build a more sustainable life for me and my family. And the only way that I know how to thank you for that is by continuing to mine my personal humor and experience and my relationships for more stories to bring to you in cinematic language. To see your response to the film has invigorated me and many others others who believe in this art form. So I just thought that was a really cool letter. That just makes me want to get out to the theater. But that's it. That's the whole episode. Now, if you'd like to see a list of my updated Best Picture series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. And for those of you who've been watching for a while and you're enjoying these rankings and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and or follow. For anybody else out there, you can comment or shoot me an email at info@therankpodcast.com with questions, comments, or suggestions, and I will reply to you if you want me to. Please also consider becoming a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. So forgive me, I am leaving. Goodbye. I start out going over some tidbits and facts.
Cut!
I start out by going over some facts and tidbits about...
Cut!
And then we'll finish up with the rank, the namesake of the show, where I...
Cut! Take 3.
Then we'll finish up with the rank, where I... Oh, man, I'm rusty. Tony, I haven't been doing this in a bit.
That's okay. Take your time.